Oh, hello. Before I get stuck into today's episode, I want to let you know about an upcoming event that I'm hosting. It's one of my speakeasies. Now, if you haven't been to one of my speakeasies before, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a space where you can come and practice your speaking and where I aim to make speaking easy. And this month we're focusing on storytelling, because storytelling, I think, is one of the easiest ways to build rapport, build connection, and get your point across without having to go down the rabbit holes of details and, data and all of those kind of things. But so many people I talk to tell me that they don't know how to tell stories. They do, it's just that they've overcomplicated it. So on the 27th of March, that's a Friday, I think it's at 11 a.m, but double check that when you click through on the link. That's Brisbane time. I'm hosting one of my speakeasies and it's focusing on storytelling. I'll give you a few quick tips about how to tell better stories, and then it will be your opportunity to practice and get feedback. So click the link in the show notes and I will see you at my upcoming storytelling speakeasy. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson. I've got to say, it's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited to be recording this episode because before I started, I've had every tech challenge possible. So to be standing here and looking at you and recording this particular piece of content, this particular podcast, I am breathing a sigh of relief. Now, if you are new to this podcast, welcome. My name is Kat, and on this podcast, I coach humble leaders, impact-minded public servants, business owners, and other corporate hippies how to speak with authority, with authenticity, and with confidence every single time you open your mouth. And today we're talking about gravitas. Yes, she says that with that deep tone, with gravitas. This conversation came up recently in my Presence and Impact coaching program, and I just thought it was such a good one that I wanted to bring it to the podcast. One of the things that we tend to want when we are speaking is that we want to speak with greater gravitas. When everybody stops and listens and pays attention to what it is that we say. Now, I had to look up the definition because I know what gravitas looks like and I know what gravitas sounds like, but what does it actually mean? What is the dictionary definition of gravitas? And what I found was its seriousness and importance of manner, causing feelings of respect and trust. That's the thing, causing feelings of respect and trust. Now, when I really sit into that definition, causing feelings of respect and trust, it has me open up the picture that we often have of gravitas. It's not having the perfect words. It's not having the perfect delivery. I don't think it's not necessarily charisma or being really smooth and polished. And in fact, when I think about it, I've seen plenty of very smooth, very charming speakers, but they haven't caused feelings of respect and trust. They've been great performers, but I haven't necessarily wanted to buy or follow what they were spruiking. So today I want to talk about how do we develop gravitas from our own place of authenticity. And I'm going to say from our current place of authenticity, because I think a lot of people believe that in order to have gravitas, they need more experience, more expertise, more time on stage, more time in leadership positions. And that's not true. You can deliver your message, you can hold space with that level of seriousness and importance and cause feelings of respect and trust in others from where you currently are. So why do we find it hard to have gravitas? Well, first of all, I think it's because we often feel that we need to justify ourselves. We need to justify our opinions, our perspectives, our expertise. We feel like we're tap dancing a lot of the time to prove that we know what we're talking about. And I'm going to say, particularly for women, this is a habit, not a reality. If we are still in the mindset of our early careers, and we're perhaps mid or late career now, but we're still in the mindset of our early careers of having to prove ourselves, then that's a story that we're telling ourselves, that we need more experience. It's actually not reality. Similarly, if we are the ones in the room that have the expertise, the experience, the valued perspective, we don't need to justify it. We can just own it. So I think one of the things that happens for us in these conversations is that we are still asking permission or for acceptance or for consensus rather than just owning our experience and owning our expertise. Now, this makes sense. We're afraid of rejection. We have developed our careers, developed our expertise, developed our credibility by proving ourselves, and there is a temptation to continue to articulate or talk about our experience rather than just be the expert in the room. We don't want to be rejected. Being part of the tribe is really important to us human beings. And so we're looking for consensus. We're looking for that, yes, it's perfectly okay for you to have that opinion, rather than just sitting in that place of expertise. I'm aware that I'm a little bit abstract today, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to trust that it lands for you as I'm speaking. I think the other reason why we sometimes don't have the gravitas that we want is because we start speaking before we're clear on our position. And this makes sense, particularly if you're a verbal processor, particularly if you do form your opinions, your perspectives, your recommendations, your conclusions based on the inputs of others. And if we're not careful with how we frame that to the people that we're talking to, then it can look like we're a pushover, or it can feel like we're a pushover. It can look like we're trying to accommodate everybody, when actually what we might be doing instead is actually looking for a solution that best fits all. We can still facilitate a good outcome for as many stakeholders as possible whilst still being congruent in our position to start with. So I think being congruent in our position, being clear on our outcome, being clear on our perspective of a situation, and letting go of any worry that we might have about causing upset or causing offence, that will help us to step into a conversation with more presence. So, as I said, this conversation came up in one of the conversations in my Presence and Impact program. And the line that I found myself saying over and over again actually was, I believe that gravitas is holding yourself as yourself. It's actually not a performative act. It's not something that you put on. It's not something that you display. It's something that you are. And so it's, how do you sit in your authority, in your credibility, in your experience, and therefore as you are expressing your opinions, as you're expressing your recommendations, as you're facilitating what might work for others, you're still sitting in a place of gravitas. Now, regular listeners will know that I talk a lot about brag bag stories, particularly as part of my Earn the Right framework, which is a way of establishing credibility and authority at the same time as overcoming your own imposter syndrome. I'll pop a link to a couple of those episodes in the show notes. this is another place where your brag bag stories can be really powerful. And in fact, we spoke about this just last week in my interview with Gabrielle Dolan, who was talking about authentic storytelling with, perhaps helping or getting AI to help us find our stories, but then we craft them with authenticity ourselves. So how do you demonstrate your expertise with stories? Well, if you've done what I've recommended in previous episodes and you've gone digging for your brag bag stories, then you can pepper those stories throughout your conversations to give gravitas. For example, in my experience, when I needed to convince elected officials of my opinion, I would blah, 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 blah. Or in my 25 years of working with small business owners as well as working in the public sector, I have found that these stories you can just have, I like to say, in your back pocket, and then you're pointing to them and you're framing them or you're introducing them in a way that points to and lets your audience know that it's your experience and your expertise. So in my experience, I've found, or perhaps you want to say, the research increasingly shows XYZ. Or one of my favourites is, in the work that I've done with hundreds of clients over the last few years, I've proven beyond a reasonable doubt that we change the stories we tell ourselves by changing the stories we tell others. As I explain this, what I'm also aware of is it's as much about your tone and your body language as it is about the actual words that you're using. And this is, I think, the biggest thing for people to recognise. Speaking with greater gravitas is not about special words. It's not about sounding intellectual. It's not about sounding well-versed, well-researched, well-informed. It's about owning your experience. It's about owning your expertise and then sharing that from a place of trust in yourself. If gravitas inspires respect and trust in others, then you have to trust your experience and your knowledge and your expertise yourself. So rather than looking for validation from others that you know what you're talking about, it's about going into a conversation knowing that you have something to contribute. You don't need to be the absolute expert because, let's face it, no one is. And you do need to trust that what you are bringing to the table adds value. So as we wrap, I'm aware that some of my episodes are very practical and some of them are a little bit more provocative and more thought experiments. But as we wrap, I want you to consider as you go about your day today, when you last left a conversation wanting more gravitas, what were you doing? Were you asking for permission? Were you looking for validation? Were you hoping that people would believe you? And if you changed that, if you went into your next conversation trusting that what you have to offer is of value, even if others disagree, that's not where the value is. And that's also not where the gravitas is. If you come into your next conversation believing what you believe to be true, believing in your recommendation, having a degree of substance in what it is that you're bringing to the table, then how might that change your gravitas? How might that change how you sit in yourself to express your opinions, to express your ideas? As I've said, I've spoken about brag bag stories so many different times. So I'm going to pop a particular link in episode 151, how to talk about yourself without sounding braggy. And of course, go back and listen to last week's episode 189, my conversation with Gabrielle, on how to amplify your storytelling efforts with a little bit of AI, not to craft your stories with AI, but how to use AI maybe as a bit of as a gravitas coach to help you find your stories and use those stories from your past to demonstrate your credibility. I would love to know what you think about this, and I would love to know your experience of feeling that sensation of gravitas versus feeling the opposite of gravitas. So the best way to do that is to find me on Instagram at Kat Matson. There is a T in Matson, and Kat is spelt with a C. And the link is in the show notes. So just go and DM me and just share with me your thoughts about gravitas, because I love having conversations with you. I love having conversations with listeners around what's resonating, what's not, what needs more explaining, and it absolutely serves for future podcast episodes. As I also mentioned, upcoming at the end of March is my next speakeasy session. It's entirely free, and this month we're focusing on storytelling. How apt. We will work on how to find some of these stories to deliver more gravitas. So I'll spend 15 minutes or so teaching some frameworks about how to find your stories and then tell your stories. And then the rest of the time in the hour will be entirely you sharing, getting feedback, practicing, pulling apart, and letting me help you see the magic in some of your stories. Finally, last things last, if this episode has been of value to you, could you please help me reach more people and help my outcome of getting more diverse voices contributing to the conversations that matter? You can do that by commenting if you're listening or watching on Spotify or on YouTube. You can do it by sharing, however you prefer to share particular podcast episodes, or leave a rating or review on whatever platform you are leaving. That just helps the little algorithm gods to know that this is a worthy podcast that people perhaps should listen to. So thank you in advance. I appreciate that. Next week, we're going to continue this theme of storytelling, and we're going to talk about how to actually bring your conversations, or your stories, I should say, into commercial conversations, and how you can keep moving people along your customer journey. So until next week, here's to confidence and here's to impact, and I'll see you really soon.